Hey y'all, it's Amanda and this is my Texas Zone 8 garden, and today we're going to be talking about all the ins and outs of snapdragons, about their different classifications, different varieties, and how to start them from seed. Okay, so snapdragons are one of my favorite things to start from seed at this point. I typically start a lot of my snapdragon seeds in the fall and overwinter them because they're an excellent cool flower for my particular area. But I also need to go ahead and start a whole bunch of seeds in the spring for my friend Kristen for her garden. So snapdragons can definitely be started in the fall, and they can be started in the spring, whichever works for your particular area. Typically, they're going to do better overwintering in a warmer climate, like my climate, Zone 8. And if you're interested in overwintering snapdragons, there is a video in my video description. There's a video link in my video description below, and you can check that that variety out, that video out. Oh, couldn't get there. But today what I wanted to do is go a little bit in depth regarding snapdragons. I think it can be a little bit confusing if you don't know some of the ins and outs of them. They're fairly easy to start from seed. I don't think they're the easiest to start from seed, but let's go over what all is involved regarding that. I also think that snapdragons, if you are willing to take on starting snapdragons from seed, you will be greatly rewarded. They are an amazing flower to grow. They're an amazing flower to harvest, and there's just nothing like them. I really love having them for my bouquets. Now, snapdragons are grouped in a couple of different ways. One of the first groupings is they're grouped by height. So there's like tall, there's intermediate, there's short, and there's dwarf. The tall ones are the ones that you want to grow if you're going to be growing them for cut flowers. A lot of times when you're at the big box store, you're probably most likely going to see either the short or dwarf varieties that you would use as bedding plants in your garden. If you decide to grow tall varieties, most likely they're going to need some support. I don't really stress about support. I just try to plant them all really close together so that they support each other. But if you're in an area, especially that has high wind or something like that, you're definitely going to want to have some kind of plant stakes or netting to keep your tall varieties of snapdragons upright. Snapdragons are also known for being either a single or a double. A single is a traditional look of a snapdragon where it looks like the little dragon head, and it's kind of has a hinged bloom that you can pinch and it will open and close its mouth. It's very cool. The doubles look more like a butterfly, kind of feel much more open, frilly, and gorgeous, and the doubles do tend to bloom longer. Now, the snapdragon group classification also divides them up regarding their ideal growing season. So do they grow best in the cooler weather, in the spring, in the summer, in the fall, or whatever? So that's how the rest of the groups are divided, and they're actually labeled group 1, group 2, group 3, and group 4. So let's talk about each of those groups. Okay, group 1, I call it group 1 winter because that helps me remind me of what group 1 is about. These are snapdragons that do well in cooler area. They tend to be a little bit shorter. They do well in what we call weaker light. So there's not as much light, strength of light or length of light during the winter days, and they do fine with that reduced amount of light. Like I said, they are shorter with smaller flower heads, and they flower quickly and earlier in the season than most other ones. A couple of varieties, Admiral, Chantilly, and Alaska series, are all part of group 1. And group 2 is early spring. These need a longer length of light and stronger light than group 1. So you'll start to see as we go through that they need more light as we're traveling through the groups. So this one is, it needs more than the group 1, but less than the summer varieties we're going to be talking about. It's a medium height and medium bloom. Some of the varieties of group 2 are Cinderella, Costa, and Little Darling. Now, group 3 is late fall. It's similar to the varieties of early spring, but it grows best in the fall when temps are a little bit cooler. So it still needs that early light, all that light that you're getting in early spring, but we need a little bit of the cooler temps from fall. They grow best in the fall and bloom later in the season, and a couple of those varieties are Animation and Apollo. And finally, group 4 is summer, and these need the most amount of light and the longest amount of longest days, so that you have a great concentration of light and a long time of having that light every day. These are known for being much taller, and they need a longer time to bloom and mature. And those varieties are Rocket and Opus. Now, I have grown varieties from all 4 groups. I find that in my particular area, these groups really get smashed together. I feel like this description of winter, early spring, summer, fall really talks about like this really long expanse of growing time. I don't see that in my area. The reason I don't see that in my area is because we get so hot so quickly. So I think a lot of my snapdragons bloom April through June, and I rarely see very many blooms in the fall. I think it's going to be different for each person's growing zone. So if some of these don't work during the particular season that you were hoping or that it says it works, that's okay. I think it's really about learning what varieties are going to work best for your areas. I do really think that people in the cooler zones are going to have more luck with group 1 and group 2, and those that are in the warmer zones are most likely going to have more luck with group 3 and group 4. Okay, let's talk about what varieties we're going to be starting. I have quite the set of seeds right here. These are all Kristen's seeds that she ordered for me to start for her. I start her seeds all the time for her. She's a very, very busy person, and I love doing it, and I get to create content on it. And so she had a very big wish list of Snapdragons. I'm not sure that we're going to start every single one of these because this is a lot of Snapdragons, and y'all can see I'm pretty filled up right now. I don't have a lot of room. So I think what I'll do is I'll select maybe 6 or 7 of them and we'll start with those. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to work from group 1 all the way through group 4. So we will start, I go through, and all of these are from Johnny Seeds, but Johnny Seeds does not label them with the group that they're in. So I always go through and I always write the group on the outside of the package so that I know for future reference when I am planting them. And if you're looking for the groups, Johnny's actually has it on their website. They just don't have it on the actual package. So you can go in and locate it on their website. Okay, so the first one is Chantilly White Snapdragon. These are groups 1 through 2. They're about 48 inches tall. They do bloom from germination to bloom is 100 to 110 days. They are vigorous, high-performing plants, produce dramatic, sturdy, long stems of huge open face, lightly scented butterfly-type flowers. So these are doubles. It says that the Chantilly blooms are long-lived longer lived than other snapdragons, both in garden and vase use. So these will be really beautiful, very classic to start. Okay, the next variety is called Costa Silver, and this is one of my personal favorite varieties. I do grow in my own garden, and this is group 2. So its days from germination to bloom is 100 to 110 days, about a height of 28 to 36 inches tall. They are known for a light silvery pink blooms with a yellowish throat that cover sturdy stems from mid-spring through fall, wonderfully scented with a dark green foliage. And these are absolutely beautiful. And I found that these are very versatile because they have such a pale color. Now the next variety is Costa Apricot, and this is a group 2 as well. And from seed to germination to bloom is 100 to 110 days, about a height of 28 to 36 inches tall. It is a cheerful apricot with a slight pink blush, upright spikes bedecked with classic snap, which is a sure bet for those punchy combos. And when you hear someone say classic snap, that's a single bloom where it has that hinged bloom. And these are exceptionally long blooming and do appreciate from deadheading once the blooms have spent for repeat. That's definitely a thing about snapdragons. The more that you harvest them, the more blooms you're going to get. Okay, the next variety is Costa Summer Lavender, and this is group 3. So we're getting into the summer, or these are these the fall varieties? These are the late fall varieties. And this is kind of considered a little bit more of a longer blooming variety of snapdragons. It is days from germination to bloom, 105 to 115 days, and this is a much taller height at 40 to 60 inches tall. I do want to point out that none of my snapdragons have ever got that tall. It is blooms and produces flowers with a similar soft lavender color and comparable stem length as a Potomac lavender if you've grown the Potomac lavender. This is a lovely color that kind of bridges between pink and lavender. Okay, the next variety is Madam Butterfly Ivory, and this is part of the double series because it's a butterfly, and this is groups 3 through 4. Days from germination and bloom is 110 to 120 days. Its height is about 26 to 36 inches tall. It is known for its double blooms with a ruffled edge and a very soft ivory tone. It's considered a cool season hardy flower, which is kind of nice. That's why I started a lot of these in the fall. That worked best for me, but I needed to start some for Kristen. So here you are starting in the spring. You can definitely start them in the spring as well. There's lots of gardeners that start them typically in January. I should have started them earlier in January, but they'll still be fine. Okay, the next variety is Madam Butterfly Bronze with White, and this is groups 3 through 4. From germination and bloom is 110 to 120 days. Height is 26 to 36 inches tall. It has double blooms with a ruffled edge, unique bronze and salmon petals with white throats. It's very, very unique and very beautiful. So this is definitely a fun one to start with. And the next variety is Madam Butterfly Bronze. So we just looked at the bronze with white. This is one with just bronze, so it won't have any of the white striations. This is groups 3 through 4. It's from germination to bloom, days 110 to 120, and it is 26 to 36 inches tall, and it's known for just a lovely shade of apricot coral, fully double open face blooms that are absolutely stunning. So both of those varieties, even though they sound very close, they have very different looks to them. Okay, so let's get started with getting these started from seeds. Now, I do believe that snapdragons benefit from a little bit of cold stratification prior to starting them and start sowing them inside. So I actually just pop these in for a couple of days, no big deal. You can pop them in the refrigerator for about anywhere from a few days to 2 weeks. Definitely the refrigerator, not the freezer. That is very, very important. I do believe you'll get a higher germination rate if you do a little bit of cold stratification. However, cold stratification is not required. I just think that you get a lower germination rate if you don't do it. Now, typically you would want to start your snapdragons about 6 to 10 weeks prior to the last frost. I'm at about the 4-week mark, which isn't ideal, but it's still fine. Everything's going to be good. I'm going to be using my favorite potting soil, which is Burger BM7. I get a lot of questions about why I use potting soil instead of seed starting mix. It's really couple of different things. Convenience. I like having just one type of soil. I have also located a potting soil that I think has a really fine, airy texture, which is very important when starting seeds. You definitely don't want anything that's really compacted or has a lot of large pieces. And this Burger BM7 just has this very light, airy feel to it, which I think is ideal for starting seeds and, of course, using in my garden. There's nothing wrong with using seed starting mix. I just choose not to. So that's just me. If you want to use seed starting mix, you absolutely should. Okay, for starting these, we're going to be utilizing my Amazon seed starting trays that has 12 seeds cells in it. Comes with a water reservoir, and then it also comes with a dome. If you're interested in those, they are listed in my Amazon storefront link, which is in the video description of all of my videos, or at least all my videos from the last year or so. Now, I always start with a dry soil, so I'm just coming across with my soil and working it into the container, using a couple of fingers to compact it a little bit. I'm not trying to press it down like super hard, just enough. And then I run my hand across the top. Now, snapdragons are surface sown, so they're not going to be covered at all. So I go ahead and do fill the soil all the way to the top of these containers. So let's go ahead and fill all 7 containers. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and fill the water reservoirs about 50% of the way up and go ahead and sink my soil down, or my seed cells down in there. And it will soak in really fast. I did want to make sure I made the comment of this dry to wet technique does not work with seed starting mix. You have to do it with potting soil. Seed starting wet mix just doesn't wick up water the way regular potting soil does. So you have to mix the water and the soil together by hand for a seed starting mix prior to putting it in the containers. And you can see how quickly these will go ahead and sink down and suck up the water. Okay, the first variety we're going to start with is the Chantilly White. So I'm coming in here. The seeds are crazy tiny, y'all. Very, very, very tiny. Look like specks of stush, just like that. I'm going to put a couple of seeds in each little container, so I have a higher chance of germination in each seed cell. And then what you want to do is you really want to make sure it has really good contact. So you're going to come through and push down the soil. And you definitely want to check to make sure that you don't have any seeds sticking to you. They should be fine because the soil isn't actually very moist yet. It's when the soil is really moist when the seeds start to stick to your finger. And then I am going to dust off over the cell just in case I had something sticking. And then I am going to come through with just a very light layer of vermiculite. I don't want to go too heavy because, like I said, snapdragons do need light to germinate. All right, and then we want to put our humidity dome on, making sure that it is closed. These do take 7 to 14 days to germinate. They need to be at about 65 degrees to germinate. So inside my house is just fine. It's a little bit warmer than that, but they should be absolutely fine. Bottom heat is not necessary unless you are going to do this in a garage or basement that's much colder. Proximity to light is super important for snapdragons, meaning we want the light, if my hand is the light, we want the light as close as possible to the seedlings. If the light is too far away, it will cause the seedlings to get very leggy, and I found this to be very, very true for snapdragons. So you definitely want to start the light as close as possible when you are starting these from seed. Got those done. One thing I want to do real quick, and we'll finish talking about that in a second, is I started a bunch of tomato, pepper, and eggplant seeds. Everybody did well except for one particular variety called the Constelluto Genovese tomato. So I did want to point out that I had zero germination on that particular variety. Let me see if I can find it real quick. This variety was from MI Gardener. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and reseed again, see if I have better luck this next time around. I'm going to put 3 or 4 in here. And see, actually, I'm going to finish it up, put all the seeds in, hoping that I get at least some kind of germination with them. I thought that was weird because everything else from my gardener did great. And then we're just going to put a little bit of light soil over the top of these. Yeah, but I did want to make sure that I let y'all know that I was having issues with that particular variety. And then they're going to go back in their humidity domes. The reason they're like this is because I had them in a really big 10 by 20, a whole bunch of them all together, and everything else needed its humidity dome taken off except for these. So I just put these in their individual ones to make it easier. And then tomatoes do have to be on a heating mat. So we'll put them right back here. Okay, that worked out good. So I've got the snapdragons all along here. I talked about proximity to light is very important to snapdragons. In the past, I've always been like, oh, I'll move them closer to light once they've germinated, and I end up getting really leggy seedlings. So starting them as close to as possible to light is important. So I've got them all lined up here. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, so all the way to here. And so that'll be good 7 to 14 days to the germination at 65 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, a couple of other things. I keep my grow lights on for 16 hours a day. You need to have yours on minimum 14 hours. You do not need to leave them on all night. The seeds need some time to sleep and rest as well. 16 just seems to work really well for the quality and capability of my particular lights. So you can actually kind of experiment with yours, but definitely minimum 14 hours. Now, fertilizing for most seedlings and including snapdragons is going to be once you have the first set of the first 2 sets of true leaves. Now, I have a lot of people are asked like, what is a true leaf? So I want to talk about that for a few minutes. Seed leaves versus true leaves. Seed leaves are the first leaves that you see come out of the seedling. It's usually 2 right off the bat. Those are your seed leaves. Those are not true leaves. Those are just getting the seeds started, getting the root system started. From those 2 seed leaves, it will produce a longer stem and additional leaves. All the leaves past those original 2 seed leaves are true leaves. So any leaves that are number 3, 4, and beyond, those are your true leaves. So snapdragons, you want to wait until you have at least 2 sets of true leaves. That means leaves 1 and 2 are seed leaves. Leaves 3 and 4, 5 and 6, those are true leaves. Once you get that, you can fertilize them typically with a liquid fertilizer at about half the percentage. I just kind of guesstimate and eyeball it. I use Alaskan fish emulsion fertilizer. Smells terrible, but works really great for my seedlings. Now, snapdragons can really benefit from pinching, and once these all get started, I will have an update seedling video where I'll go through and show you how to pinch them appropriately so that you can get them to branch out if you want. Some people don't pinch them at all. They really like those earlier blooms where they just bloom from that original stalk. Then you cut that stalk and then you get more blooms from there. If you decide to pinch them, you're going to set them back a couple of weeks, but more likely you're going to get more blooms over time. Another really important thing about snapdragons is they are heliotropic, meaning they are going to follow the sun. So if this is the sun and this is a snapdragon, it's going to follow the sun throughout the day. So let's say you have some high winds and your snapdragon falls over like this. The flower portion of it, which is my hand, is going to immediately try to correct itself, and you're going to get a bent stem like this, all right? Because the flower is always going to want to point up at the sun. So that's one of the things to really remember about snapdragons is you need to stake them if possible. I don't really stress about it. It doesn't stress me out, but if you're someone who's growing them and you want perfect blooms, you definitely want to stake them or add some kind of netting to keep them upright in case there's winds, because like I said, they will adjust themselves, the flower head, to the sun. Okay, that was fun. I'm excited. 7 different varieties of snapdragons started for Kristen's garden. Should be great. Hopefully I can snag a couple of plants if they all do well and add some of those to my garden. I'm sure that won't be a problem with Kristen at all. But yeah, it was fun to start these off with you today. Like I said, you can start these like I do in the fall, or you can start them in spring. I am a little late right now, so if you do want to start snapdragons, start them immediately. If you're in my area, I really should have started them earlier on in January. Do I think they'll be fine? Yes, I think they'll be absolutely fine. One of my next videos is going to be an update on all the seedlings. So much is going on. So many things need to be potted up. All of my seed dahlias need to be potted up. My toothache plant has germinated. My bell peppers have germinated. My dianthus, lots of varieties of dianthus have germinated. My peppers have germinated. My eggplant has germinated. I have a lot of things that need to be upgraded into larger containers, and let me show you my petunias real quick. Y'all, these need to be upgraded into larger containers as well. So I've got a lot going on in my seed starting space, and I am going to do an update video going through all the seeds, how they're all doing, and do any maintenance things that I need to do with them and show y'all how that all is going for me. All right, y'all, as always, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. When you leave a comment, it helps grow my channel. If you don't want to say anything, just drop me a sweet emoji. That works great as well. And you can check me out on social media, including Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. As always, she's a mad gardener or a decorator or anything else that she wants to be. Thanks, y'all.